set the official clock.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. Okay, this meeting will come to order. It's 6:30. If we'll please stand. Would anybody like to do the invocation?
Or you want to move the flag? That's my move.
Oh, Ms. Terry, can we move that flag out, sir?
Oh.
Dave, can we move the flag out?
flag's gone from back
Thank you.
here.
Gosh,
Unless that's it, I don't know if that's.
That probably
How many can you see?
Okay, invocation, dear Lord, we ask of you today for a bountiful gathering to make the proper decisions for a prosperous city moving forward, and that we all can come to common ground to make this city a better place. Thank you, O Lord. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Back on March 19th, we had, oh, no, I didn't do roll call, sorry, it's been a busy couple hours, thank you. Roll call, Dane Elliott. Here. Justin Doss. Here. Trish Boyette.
here.
Jimmy Bowen.
Here.
Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Ms. Mydell.
Here.
And Mr. Bowen. Good. Okay, all accounting present for. Okay, the agenda, everybody has received the agenda for this evening. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, can I get an approval for the agenda?
I'm gonna move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The previous minutes back on March 19th, there were 5 of us present. We had staff of Ms. Terry and Lolly present. The meeting was called to order at 6:30. The agenda was approved. The prior minutes from February 20th were approved. We had new business, a petition filed by Mr. Jimmy Bowen for a zoning amendment, which was approved. The second item on the agenda was a petition filed by Seth Cannon with Evans General Contractors requesting the sign variance at Saywan. There were numerous points of discussion. In the end, we had a vote of 4-1. The motion passed. The third item, we reviewed proposed changes to Chapter 90, which was the Section 90-71, the protective buffer of adjacent property, and Article 5, tree regulations. This was approved unanimously. We discussed the workshop for the UDO Chapter 3 Development Regulations. And we also discussed the June 18th meeting to be moved to June 11th. The meeting was adjourned at 7:30. Are there any comments or discussions on the prior minutes, additions, subtractions? If I could have a motion for approval?
Motion approved.
Okay.
The minutes, or
The
the
meeting,
minutes.
previous minutes.
Previous minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. One thing before we get going, do you wanna talk about this, or you want me to talk about it, about the communication?
Oh, I was gonna talk about it.
Okay, Ms. Terry is going to, bring up, this is not on the agenda, but this is something that's very important. It happens a lot in the meetings, not just our meetings, but in meetings in general. So to help our meetings flow a little bit better, she's going to have a discussion.
Yes, and before I do that, just while we have an audience, I do want to invite everybody to attend our comprehensive plan stakeholders committee meeting tomorrow. It's at 5:30 at the Heinley Center for anybody that is interested. They will do public comment at the end, where the city is updating our comprehensive plan this year. So they're going to be talking about goals and the vision and things that the city is strong in and things that the city is weak in, and opportunities for improvement. So if anybody is available and looking for something to do tomorrow, 5:30 at the Heinley Center. So okay, so yes, and hopefully we're on the we're talking about the same thing. I just wanted to make sure that when y'all start to have your discussions, I know we've only had I guess this is our fourth meeting. So everybody will not always be on the same page with the discussion, and that's fine. And the board may not be on the same page as council when we have discussions, and that's fine as well. The only thing that I would ask is just that everybody would participate in the conversation and the discussion about it, ask questions, and then also, and please bring up differing points of view, because I know we've had it in the past where the differing point of view might be brought up during the vote, and then somebody says, oh, I didn't think about that, and I might have voted differently, and at that point it's too late. So we do want, if you, it's not that you can't say during the meeting one thing and then vote a different way, because sometimes you might be swayed by a question that somebody asks and the way that that's answered, but it probably shouldn't be a surprise to the applicant or to staff or to your other board members what it is, if there's a good, robust discussion going on. So just please ask questions. That's what, we have the applicant here always. If the applicant's not here, we won't even have the board hear it. We would postpone it to the next meeting. So we've always got the applicant here for y'all to hear from. Staff's always here. For this particular one, we have David Matos because it deals with the building permit, and we'll always have, or do our best to have appropriate staff here. For example, if it was something related to the fire department or something where, maybe Public Works would need to be involved, we'll try to make sure that they're here too, because y'all have to vote tonight and make a recommendation. You can't postpone it. So we want to make sure that we give y'all all the information and all the people here that can answer those questions. So I just wanted to go ahead and say that before we got started.
Thank you. Okay. With that being said, we will start our new business. The first item on tonight's agenda, and the only item, a petition has been filed by Mr. Stan and Ms. Louise Reiner, requesting a variance to encroach into the side and front setbacks for a new house located at 123 Sweetwater Drive. The property is owned by the Reiners and is zoned R4, single-family residential, parcel R26 00037. Do I have anybody that would like to speak in reference to the,
So y'all would go ahead and come up. Yes.
and please state your name when you approach the podium, please. Thank you.
And I've put the as-built on the screen there for y'all.
I am Louise Reiner.
That's why
Thank you for attending.
you will.
Oh, okay. Well, I know as little about it as you do, but anyway, we'll go ahead. Back in, when we started building this house on 123 Sweetwater Circle, and this is my knowledge, you might have to correct me there because I wasn't there all the time either. But, we applied for a building permit to build a home in 123 Sweetwater in Dasher's Landing. And, the copy of the house laid on the plat was, submitted, I think, at the same time. Building permit was granted, and we worked very, very closely with Mr. David to build this home. And when, we had to go do a, as-built, for the property, which we really didn't know about until later down the road. Mr. David probably said something to Stan about it, but Stan never heard Mr. David when he did, because that's how it didn't get done until later on. Well, when we did the as-built survey, they came up with this on the plat, and this is the way it is. He couldn't find all the markers, but what markers he found, Mr. Fulcher did it. He found the markers and he pulled it, and come to find out. But during the time when the house was laid out and they went to build the house, they had to pull some, from a stake across the street, because this road had sort of encroached on the property when the road was built. It was like closer there, and everybody said at that time, well, they knew they had some problem with it when it was done, because the man across the street said he had more,
Problems with his.
he had problems with his, but he had more than he was supposed to have. So that's how that came about. Well, I asked Mr. Fulcher, was he allowed to pull from that stake across the street? And he said, no, I can't do that. He said, I'll find the stakes and then I'll go down the street to the next location of the house, like on the same side of the property you're on. I'm not allowed to go across the street. So this is where we are. We have encroached on some, here, and we're like, what do we do now? So Mr. David advised us we go and ask for a variance. So we are applying for a variance to continue, and we're just about ready to move in this house. So it's kind of a,
We could only find 3 of the pins.
yeah.
The other ones were impossible to find. And, the one across the street is the main one that we went on the curve to pull from. And like I say, like she said, it was across the street, and that was the only thing we could do. But, there's just a couple of places that, I can kind of walk over and show you.
Sure.
The one up at the top, we could find, and this one and that one. And
So just to let everybody know, the front of the house is the Sweetwater bend right there where it says 60 feet, and then the Sweetwater, that's the front of the house, and that's where, some of these, variants are being requested.
Just complicated, wasn't it? I had him over there trying to figure it out, and we couldn't figure out, how to do it, and then this is what we wound up with after. We spent 3 days, the guy that was laying it out and myself, spent 3 days moving this thing around, trying to get it. And we cut the house down twice, trying to get it to fit on the property, and it was a nightmare, so.
And now the house is built.
Yes.
Okay.
It's almost finished.
Almost completed.
So I have a few questions on this. The survey, and just to let everybody know, I went out and spoke with Mr. Reiner today, looked over the property. The house is built. There are property markers that are visible, and there's definitely a difference of where, you would think versus where this property is pie-shaped. And I'm gonna re-ask the questions now that we're here in front of the planning and zoning, the survey. Who conducted the survey?
Buddy Fulcher.
Okay, is he licensed?
Yes,
Was
he
it an
is.
official? Okay.
Yes, he is licensed, and he's a retired surveyor, and he does this as extra. Yeah, and in fact, I got his name from Mr. David.
Okay. The second question, when you received this back from the city, if I remember you just saying, you received this back, you hadn't started building yet, correct?
No.
Okay, so when you received this, there was no building at this point?
Well, not the as-built.
No, not, the as-built wasn't done to begin, but the as-built was done like a month or so ago.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm
We
sorry.
started it in, November.
November, December of of last year. 22, no, yeah,
Over
22.
Over a year, yeah.
But
Right,
the as-built was done on March 8th, 2024.
right.
So now the other one that, so this is the, site plan that was turned in and approved as part of the
original.
building permit. Yes, the original site plan.
Okay.
Actually, we got a variance on it when we first started. They had the right side of that, was, on the back side of it was supposed to be 25 feet. And the side was supposed to be 15 and the front is, 30 or 35?
35.
35? Okay. Well, when we got it laid out, I forgot what I was talking about.
Well, I think the variance was done.
Yeah, we did that so we could
before
have,
we-
we could have a little bit more space, cause, all the other sides, in between the houses was 15 feet. They had this one at 25 feet. And so we went for a variance on that, and they gave us 5 feet and wouldn't give us the other 5. And then I found out later on
That was done in
that has-
21.
if there was a road between, or street between that house and the one next door, it would have been 25 feet for each one. You'd have to have the right of way going through the house. But those two right there should have been 15 foot on each side in the beginning. Something happened on that thing, cause it was in the covenants. That, if there was a street in between the house, then it was 25 feet. And then when I talked to Mr. David, he told me that the 25 feet was from the back point where it's got 2.5 and the arrow.
The upper left.
That's, yeah, at the very top. He told me that from there, that was considered the 25 feet. And then we did get to 15 feet on the other side, and we still wound up with what we got, so.
Right, so that's what I was just gonna say, just to orient everybody, just because of the way cause it is a pie-shaped lot, and the way the house is oriented on it. So there is a rear setback, but it's just that back corner there, and, it's marked on there, the 25 feet, 15 feet on the side. So this is the side also right here, except for, this is the only portion that's the rear, so this is the side, 15 feet, and then the front along Sweetwater is 35 feet. And that's shown on your as-built, but just, that's what it is on the building plan. So right now, what you're looking at is the site plan that David approved as part of the building permit. And then the other item is the as-built survey that was done in March, that's required with all permits.
So what we're seeing here is the front, the lower between the A and the B, it should be 35 feet, and I see 34 and 34.2. Up in the, up by the C marker, there's 30 foot, and then up by the 148.80, I see 11 foot, and then 13.2, that should be 15 foot, correct?
Right.
The dotted line always means that that is the setback line around the property. So when you see that,
15 feet.
when you see that dotted line, that's where the house has to be within that
Within that.
line. So the sides are 15, the front 35, and the back 20.
Right,
Was
so you
it
can see, so
seven
there's
above?
there's basically 6 encroachments, because that 15.7 is not encroaching, that one is in compliance.
Well, the 8 on there that's a patio. So that's,
I marked the encroachments. Do you want me to give it to them?
Yes, and I marked it on, like, what I submitted to them, but yes, you
So
can go
I
ahead.
highlighted the encroachments that we're dealing with. You can kind of take a look at that.
For the record, this is Dave Matos, he's our,
Be careful.
you have so many hats.
Building inspector.
Building inspector, thank you. So his input, we're gonna ask for his input here in a few minutes. So, I'm looking at this here on the wall, and there's 6 points that are outside the buffer zone. And where did this breakdown happen? That's what I'm really focusing on at this point. What happened that we got it outside the buffer zone? I don't know that you can answer that. I don't know that Dave can answer that.
What was the issue in finding the pins? What was the issue in finding the pins to lay out?
They weren't there.
They said they weren't there.
We tried with a metal detector, cause it's got those markers, I think y'all probably know, you got a square, piece of concrete that's got a rebar in it.
Yeah.
And that's for finding it, and we couldn't find them. We got, metal detectors and couldn't find what, what we found. There's the highest one up, it's sticking up out of the ground about that far, but the rest of them were down in the ground and we couldn't find the other.
So in order to try to get a good survey, they went off the pin across the street.
Yeah.
You can't, yeah.
And it's, you can see it standing there,
It's
but,
about that high.
so,
That only explains one marker. You got 8 spaces in here that's wrong. You found the markers on all the rest of it. Why is it encroaching on all the rest of it? Hadn't done anything. I mean, I could get by with the front, but all those other, the markers were there.
Well, you only had the one in the corner and the one in the front, and, there were the 2 in the front on the angles.
Right.
And then the other ones, we couldn't find.
so Dave, can't you, if you have a pin, according to the records that are on file, can't you simulate where the pin should be? I'm asking, cause I'm not sure, this is your expertise.
If you can't, locate the pin, there's no way to know, other than having a surveyor.
But if you have one pin,
I'm not a surveyor, I have no idea if they can locate off one pin.
So you didn't get a surveyor in the beginning, is that right?
Get what now?
You didn't get a surveyor in the beginning.
No, we didn't.
No, we used the plat that they had, and also the man that laid this out he's no longer in business, I don't think. He was from Pembroke Masonry, and we've been trying to call him, see if he had any notes, but we've been unable to get him to come back out. And I doubt he made any notes, and I think that, in all fairness, I think he was very capable, and I think he was trying to do the best he could do to get the house set on this, pulling from that pin across the street, because they had, I think y'all had determined that the street was encroached inward because of the way the street cut inside.
Dave, are you familiar with that street what she's talking about?
Yeah.
It's,
I'll explain to you the whole
okay,
scenario.
Okay.
When they get done, from start to finish.
Good.
What really went down there and how this all came about.
good. All right, do you have any other input that you would like to say?
No, we had the copies of where it was approved, the setbacks and all were approved, but I don't know where the breakdown is. We don't know. We're kinda here.
So do we have anything on file that something was approved?
Yeah, it's
We have the site plan that
Yeah,
was
probably.
submitted with the building
the
permit.
first site.
The very first one, okay.
Yes.
Lower and strong, it's out there.
So he could probably tell you a whole lot more than I can.
So everything right there is in that buffer zone.
Well, everything, so you can see, and David will speak to this since he was the one that approved this, but you can see that the structure doesn't encroach into any of the setbacks.
Okay,
And that
Alright, and I think we'll find out
I'll explain.
with Dave, when he comes up, we'll find out. Okay, does anybody have any, questions or comments?
I have a question
Ms. Tricia?
about the rear of the property where it says the PD, where it's the patio or deck. Is that enclosed, a covered area? That's just an
No.
open pad? Okay, all right, so it's not a question about that. So that could
There, it's
possibly-
fenced in,
But you can, I think you can have a top on, I mean, a shelter on top of the patio.
and if I remember right, a piece of the concrete was inside that buffer zone that we were
Yeah.
discussing. Okay.
Yeah,
Any other
actually,
questions?
Is the patio, I can't remember, is the patio, I've been out here a while, is the patio got a roof on it?
No,
No, so it's just a slab?
Right,
Okay.
correct.
it's not, it's actually not square like it is on the,
Right.
as-built.
Yeah, it's sort of a rounded.
Is there a photo of that?
We rounded the corner.
I took pictures of the front.
Cause
I
when I drove by, I couldn't see because of the fence.
Yeah, it's sort of a rounded, it sticks out from the house about anywhere from 8 foot to 10 feet.
If you put that other back on there, you can see the patio on it.
Oh, you can, okay.
Yeah, the one with, that one there, it says, I guess it's PO or.
Yeah, see, that shows it being squared off, but it's not.
PD.
And that's what I'm saying,
These-
if that rounded takes away, like, if that's another
Yeah,
2
it
feet,
is
3 feet
round.
that way, then he might not be encroaching there. That's why I was trying to figure out if that, cause if you're saying it's rounded, that's what I was asking for a photo.
It is rounded.
Actually, these right here,
So-
they're curved, and it comes back around here and it's curved back over here.
So let me add something
All
before,
that's patio.
let me add something before we get into a big conversation. So if the patio is just a cement slabs do not have to meet zoning setbacks.
Right.
So you
Can you
can,
have a
you
top
can
on it?
totally forget that patio if it's just a slab with no roof line. If it had a roof line, then that's considered a structure, and then the structure has to meet zoning setbacks. So we can kinda cancel that right out of the
Okay,
picture.
so
What
now
you
we
were
can't-
saying-
okay.
What you were saying
Yeah,
is
okay.
then, no.
I wasn't
why-
sure whether it was covered or not.
Cause I could not see it from when I did my drive by, I could not see.
That's why I
So
rounded
that,
them.
that point there is not, that's a non-issue.
Yeah,
If
so we
it's,
took one out.
if it's a cement slab, and he said it is, so,
Well, that's why I curve those ends that
Right,
stick it over,
yeah.
and I'll do, when I put a roof on it, I'll curve those too.
But keep in
I
mind,
should.
If you
in
ever-
the future, if you decide you want to put a roof on that, you might run into some issues.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But it
Yeah.
sounds like the concrete alone, that's taken out of this whole equation. Okay, Mr. Bone, did you have something you'd like to say?
Who built the house?
Who?
Who built the house?
He subbed it
I
out.
am, we are.
You built your own house?
We were in business, we were under Ryder Enterprises at one time.
Right.
We built a bunch of houses, we built 8 here in Rankin,
So you didn't have a
a few
contract?
years back.
No, we had a
You didn't have a
consultant
contract?
contract, yeah.
No,
Okay.
we just subcontracted everything out.
Okay.
I wish I'd have done it all, but I
Right.
didn't have time.
Any other questions, comments, input?
That's a city-owned, maintained street.
yes. Well, I think so.
It's in Dasher's Landing. I don't know if those streets are,
I think they are.
I think they are, I think they've been given to the city.
They are.
okay, questions? Anything else?
Just a question, how do your neighbors feel about this that are right next to you? Do you have conversations with your neighbors?
Every one of them, and they're ready for us to come. And we've had several, before we knew this encroachment, was there with the city, about how beautiful we followed the street without having a curvature, like with the house. And, I think they probably will be at the next meeting, some of them, but I had one come by today and stop, and she says, well, I can't see any problem, but she said, like I told her, I said, well, I can't see it either, but there is an issue, and we didn't know. I wish we had been a little bit more informed about the as-built. Maybe we would have done it up front, or maybe we would have done it after the slab, or the, footings were poured, But building houses is not new to Stan, okay? But COVID changed a lot, a whole lot. and what you had to communicate with. You know, and you might have had the, when you dealt with, but then what they sent out to do the work sometime. He had, some other issues was inside the house with the plumbing company, like 3 toilets that had to be moved in a concrete slab. We really wanted to put the house on a crawl space, which we've done all of our houses on crawl spaces. And he likes to do that because it's easier to fix problems. And, they were informed by the architecture committee at the time, we couldn't do that. And then they came back later after all this was done, oh yeah, you could have put a crawl space.
That's an
So-
HOA thing.
Yeah,
Dave,
right.
Quick question for you, on a new home, plumbing, electrical, that all has to be permitted, correct? When the home's being
It's
built?
part of the building permit.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
and did you follow through with all that?
And they have everything that, they're only required to get a license, HVAC and a plumbing, contractor.
Okay,
By code, they can do the electrical themselves and build a house.
Well, I had someone to do it though.
Right, he got licensed
Yeah, he
people,
did.
but, they're allowed by Georgia law to build a house and do the electric if they choose to.
okay. Anything else? Thank you very
And
much.
looking at the aerial photograph, all the houses around you are already existing, and they're all set back fairly good distance from where your house is now.
Right.
It's not like if your house caught on fire, their house would catch on fire.
Well, I'll help them put it out there, I was a firefighter for 30 years.
Well, and it also, like I said, we thought it was a larger lot, and it appears to be one of the smaller lots after, you know, and, but I don't know, anyway, but this is where we are. Mr. David can answer probably the rest of the questions better than I could have to begin with, couldn't you?
Well,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Okay,
We
let's let
greatly
Mr.
appreciate your
David go.
input. Mr. Dave, would you like to come to the podium, please?
Okay, so they, Mr. Ryan, they came in for a building permit, right, showed me the site plan. Legally, we can accept a site plan like this that's drawn in with the numbers, setback numbers, that where they're gonna put the house. So, this is acceptable, and what I look at is I look at whether that meets setbacks, because I would not issue a building permit if it didn't. So looking at that, the original one, it met code, it met zoning regulations.
And what time frame is this right here?
That was, when they did pull the permit,
That would have been
through the
roughly,
22,
okay.
11/4/22 is when I think it was done.
Okay.
So they came in for a building permit, of course, like I just talked about, he can pull a permit himself, so he pulled it himself without a contract. When they came in and they showed me this drawing, right away, with my experience, this is a red flag right away for me, because it's a pie-shaped lot, and it's very tricky to place this on the house, on the lot, to conform, especially this size house. So when I was talking to Stan, in the conversation originally, right away, I know I said it 2 or 3 times to him. I really wish you would get a surveyor to pin the corners for exactly where the foundation would be set. Because I'm afraid that if you just miss one measurement with this thing, you're gonna be in trouble. And so, I'm here to advise. I advised, and Mr. Reiner, ran with it. I think where the ball really got messed up was when they couldn't find the pins. Normally, what I tell people right off the bat, hire a surveyor. If you can't find the pins, then you need, especially in this situation, you gotta find the pins. You can't rely on that masonry guy, he has no idea. I've been in this business a long time, and I would never guess where where a property pin is, or a zoning setback. Me just looking at that out in the field, there would be no idea, I would have no idea if it meets setback, unless it's really off, then I could pick it up. But if it's close like this, there's no way I would pick that up by eye. The only way is a survey. And I think that's kind of where the ball got dropped on the placement, and I think the masonry guy should have said, hey, let's get this thing flagged. Usually they flag the corners of the house for exactly where it's gonna be located. And I think that's what happened. And the reason why I pushed from the day I got this job here to get as-bills, and we just did it, Terry agreed to it, I think last year, talking to her. And the only reason why, the reason why I wanted to push it is because exactly what's going on right now. Cause there's no way really to know other than a survey, a licensed stamp survey. So, I mean, I wish they would have gotten a surveyor when they were having trouble finding the pins, but they didn't. So now it encroaches on almost every point except the patios doesn't matter. But as you can see, it encroaches on the front, the sides.
They said they shrunk it down twice already. Was this the shrunk it down first, second, or after the third?
That was the last time.
The first one, you're talking about the side.
This picture right here.
That was before it was shrunk. That was your site picture, maybe.
See, the other thing is, anybody changes something, like I was kinda concerned when the patio showed up, because it's not on the original plan. What they're supposed to do is they're supposed to come into me, we doctor up the plan, see if there's any issues. If they're not, there's no problem, we just doctor the plan that they're adding or subtracting, and so the plans show exactly what the finished product is gonna be. And that's not really that big of a deal. I'm happy that there's no roof line on the patio, because that's one less encroachment. So that's how this all came about.
On that.
Any questions? I mean,
Yes, sir. When you went out and inspected the footing,
yes.
did they have string lines up like they're supposed to have? Let
Um,
you know where the 15-foot setback was?
No, no. I have to rely on whoever the contractor is, or the
Right, that's what
homeowner to place it per what he showed me in the beginning. And it's very hard for me when I go out there to really, especially when it's like this, it's so close.
Well, I know you can't pull the string in.
A foot, there's no way. Well, there was no pin, so you couldn't pull it. Right?
You can only find one pin that he could
That
find.
one pin is across the street. That doesn't, to me, I mean, I don't know.
Those back corners were there, weren't they?
Yeah, they had a back corner.
I think
the
you had
back
one,
corner's there, right?
one back corner?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
so
in the front,
one
the
in the
left front
very
corner and the
corner.
rear corner were there. You had 2 out of 3.
Yeah. So it's very hard, unless you have those corner points to run a string, you can't run it.
That's right.
And the other problem with this lot that was really complicated from the beginning, as soon as I look at it, is the rounded front. That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
There's no way, and me and Stan was out there a few times, and I was like, I have no idea where that property line makes that curve. The only way you can figure that out is a licensor, like he did with the survey you got. That's the only way.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, you cannot measure that arch anywhere, cause you don't know where to measure from. You don't know whether to measure from the middle of the street, you don't know how to measure the edge of the street. It could be anywhere. And that's a nightmare.
thank you for attending tonight.
You're welcome.
Very
No
informational.
problem.
So I'd like to say that I've used Mr. Fulcher a couple times, and I know people that have also used him. And he did state to me that this is not an official survey, that he no longer does official surveys.
Well, it's stamped.
It is stamped, okay.
So,
Well,
if
then,
it,
if it's
as far
stamped,
as
it's
I'm
stamped. then.
concerned, whoever's stamped on it, cause I actually, so he came into me, this is another conversation I had. So, I've never really, in my career, had, surveyors ask me, what do you want? So right away I was like, wait a minute, you're asking me what I want? And so I went and pulled a survey from another property, and I put it in front of him, and I said, this is what I want, isn't this normally what you give? I want a stamped survey, recorded survey, and I wanna know exactly where that house is on that property. And that was my conversation with him, and that was only one conversation, I never talked to him again.
There's another stamp survey besides this one, is that one?
No, that's it.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
And that's for public comment.
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask that. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to speak?
No, I live in Dashkins. I was just curious about the proceedings here and how that works. I got a letter and I was at the library dropping
Well,
some
thank you
books
for
off.
attending.
Thanks for coming.
Really
Pop in
appreciate it,
and
really.
See what's going on.
Okay, so the one thing that I wanna explain to everybody on this committee is that, we are not here to try to fix the issue. We are the gateway for this variance. Whatever we say or do, this still goes to city council. We are not the final naysayers, whether it's approved, denied, or whatever the case is. I can say that myself personally, and again, I appreciate you taking the time with me today. I like to get out and meet the people that are actually doing, asking for the variance as much as I can. My biggest concern is the survey itself. It looks like that there were plans that were drawn up that were within the buffer zone, and somewhere the buffer zone, I don't wanna say it changed, but something changed to where now it's not within the limits of the buffer zone, and that's my concern of this whole thing. Again, we are not the final. We will hopefully put it up to vote here in a few minutes, but, it is a beautiful home. Unfortunately, it's already built. So, but we also wanna make sure that you understand is that we represent the city, and we want to make sure that we're doing what's in line for the city, per the ordinances, and that's why we have people like Mr. Matos here to handle these things for us, so. Do I have any other comments by any of the members sitting up here? Please, speak up.
The problem is that if we make him tear his house down, we're the culprit. Whereas all he had to do was get a survey to start with, and he wouldn't be in this position.
Okay, so let me correct, we are not the ones saying yes, tear his house down. This still goes through the city council.
I understand that.
But I understand what you're saying. It is our job to follow the guidelines of the city and to do what's right. Sometimes that's painful, and a lot of times it's for the, the good of the community, but, we have to really take into consideration party A, Mr. Matos, and come to our own conclusion on how we feel on this situation. But again, we're not the final naysayer on this.
Question. If we deny this, does it still go to city council?
It does, yes. Yes, and I did verify that today. I was in a little bit of a panic because of the questions that I had, and regardless of how we vote, it still goes to city council. Again, we're just the gateway for this. We're the ones that pass it from station A to station B, and then city council takes the final vote on it. But they do take our recommendation, that will go along with the variance.
Yes, and so and I'll just add to that, so as the board, you'll want to, as you make your recommendation, and keep in mind, I mean, nothing is personal, you're making your recommendation based on the facts before you, shared by staff, shared by the applicant, and if there were public comment based on that as well. You're also looking at the criteria. As you remember, for a variance, there are there are three criteria, and at least two have to be met. Are there unique physical circumstances or conditions? Gives you some ideas of what that could be. That because of these conditions, the property can't be developed in strict conformity, and then the granting of the variance will not result in the authorization of a use that's not permitted in the district in which the property is located. And I will say, you will not see those. We will not bring forward a use variance to you. So that first part is likely to go away with the new code. But, or cause substantial detriment to the public good. So those are the things that you want to weigh as you think about what your motion's gonna be. And yes, the board is not the final body on this. All variances are required to go to city council for a public hearing and then for 2 readings. So public hearing and first reading will be April 22nd. Second and final reading will be May 28th. So that's the process, but they do, I know Ms. Mydell attends quite a few of the city council meetings, and I think can attest that they always ask the board's recommendation and then that discussion. And I put that, they get a copy of the staff report, I update it with the board's recommendation in there and any discussion items, so they get that ahead of time as well. But yes, when the gentleman in the audience referenced the letter that he received, it's because everybody within 300 feet is required to receive a letter stating when the planning and zoning board meeting is and when the public hearing is. So everybody within 300 feet of the property was notified. And then we also post a sign in the neighborhood or on the property. We put an ad in the paper as well. I don't know how many people see that anymore, but per the legal requirements, that's what we do to make sure that everybody is given enough notification.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Dave, one last question.
Sure.
We obviously have some variance issues. I understand the city's reasoning behind this, but are there any safety concerns that we need to be made aware of with this house as it's built right now, being out of compliance?
I mean, I would say no. I would say no.
No EMS, obviously no
No,
police,
there's full access to it. I mean, it's a little closer to the road, but I think 34 feet or whatever would be adequate enough in case, whatever. And as far as the sides, the other properties away, so there's room to get around the house for fire, I guess. But the whole issue is we have to abide by our zoning regulations. We set those for a reason. Well, I don't, but they're set for a reason.
No, I fully understand. I just wanted to make sure there were no
Right.
blatant safety
Right.
concerns.
I would
before
say
we-
no.
Okay,
I would say no.
thank you.
Can I ask one more question too, sir? Are you aware of any other situation that has happened in the city where when the as-built survey required came and showed that basically it was not within?
We've only incorporated that for a year or so,
Okay.
and I haven't ran into one yet.
Okay.
Have I ran into them years in my career? Absolutely.
And in your experience, is it in Rankin, have you
No,
come up?
no.
Okay.
So, no. But the reason why I was pushing for as-built was for that reason. And most of the time, I know Stan didn't know, but most of the time, all the contractors pretty much know that after you foundation and the slab, you can get me an as-built at any time after that. But you have to have it to get a CO. So most of the time, they give them to me right away, because they wanna see them too. Which, most of them already have a survey, they give me a surveyed plot plan in the beginning anyway. So it's already been surveyed, some of them flag them, some pin the corners of the foundation, so it ends up exactly where it needs to go. So, but they get it right after the foundation's dropped, that way they can look at it, and usually it's good with them. So I haven't had an issue yet.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Have we had any of the neighbors weigh in on this?
We have not had, I was just, saying that today actually, so no, despite, and this is not atypical, but yes, we've had the sign in the yard, and we sent letters out, and we've not received any comments, positive or negative. So nobody's called to, state that they had a concern with it, or send an email, saying that, so.
All right. So for a petition that's been filed by Stan and Louise Reiner requesting a variance to encroach into the side and front setbacks for a new house located at 123 Sweetwater Drive. The property is owned by the Reiners and is zoned R4, single family residential, parcel R26000037. If I can get a motion to either approve or deny this variance.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
All in favor? Oh, wait, no, time out. Sorry. Mr. Dawson?
No.
Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Griffin?
No.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Ms. Mydell?
Yes.
Mr. Bowen? Yeah, no. I vote no. So with that, we have 4 yeses and 3 nos.
Yes, it passes.
Yes.
You said
Okay.
4 yeses, 3 noes,
4
correct?
yeses and 3 nos.
Okay, then yes, it passes.
Okay, so 4-3, this variance has passed. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
So the next step is city council next week, in this room, 7 o'clock on Monday.
Well, will we need anything different than we had tonight?
No, just, yeah, I would bring whatever you have, just in case, because you don't know what council will want, but, yep, just bring that.
Same thing, and the permits, and that's all we had.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other unfinished business or other new business that we need to discuss?
We'll see you,
No?
I won't see you at council.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'll see you on the.
No, I.
I made the motion to adjourn,
Yes,
sorry.
yes,
No, I
yes.
thought you were trying to do it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned at 7:24.